Goats are raised in every section of the United States, on large farms, on small farms, and even on suburban lots. On this farm at the foot of Mount Adams, Washington, the Carrs have a large herd of 200 goats. Mr. Carr was formerly an electrician who worked on the big Northwest dams. He saw this valley when he was on a fishing trip and determined to make it his permanent home. He started raising cows and a few goats, but he soon found that he was making more money on his goats. So he gave up his cows and now spends all his time on his very fine goat herd. Mr. Carr believes in good stock, and many of his goats are purebred. The breeds which he raises are Toggenburg, Sonnen, and French Alpine. This climate is cool, so the goats have heavy coats. Dickie and his brother Dean help take care of the goats and stock. It is important to have good bucks or father goats because they raise the standard of the entire herd. This Alpine buck is magnificent with his fine head, clear eyes, and heavy beard. Look at his deep body, heavy bones, and straight legs. A buck should be full of vim and vigor, and Jupiter seems lively enough. It takes a big boy like Dean to handle him. They are unruly and would fight, and also they have a disagreeable odor that the does do not have. This ranch is 1,000 acres. Mr. Carr has cleared 16 acres by himself. The woods behind the house are a natural feeding ground for the goats. They are turned out in the uncleared land every day. Goats are browsers by nature, as they prefer leaves, twigs, and weeds to grass. They get plenty of exercise and proper food, which keeps them healthy and makes their coats shine. Mr. Carr leaves their horns on most of his goats for protection, because the bears and coyotes come down from the woods and occasionally attack and kill one of the herd. Goats are very smart. It's said that when danger lurks near, they take turns standing guard, while the others eat and chew their cud or rest beside the mountain stream. Goats are unusually healthy, adaptable animals and thrive in many different parts of the world. While the does or mothers go to the woods, the young goats or kids are turned out in a big corral. There are about 50 kids, bashful but very inquisitive, like other baby animals. 15 of the does live in the same barn as the kids. Some of them went to the woods with the other goats. They will stay in their own group all day, but when they return, they will go directly to the kids' barn to nurse the babies. The kids eat foliage and leaves like the grown-up does. They are lucky to have this large corral to play in. The corral has shady trees and stumps and an irrigation ditch. The kids like to drink the clear water which comes from the melted snow off the mountain. The main products from goats are milk, cream, butter, cheese, meat, hides, and hair. Pink bricks of medicated salt are kept handy for all the goats. They need vitamins and minerals just like people. Mr. Carr studies their diet carefully and adds things like molasses to their grain. Mrs. Carr and Carol feed the kids night and morning and are sure each baby gets her share. Besides nursing, often the babies are fed their milk from a bottle. Inside the barn, hay and grain are left in the racks so the babies can nibble all day. Mrs. Carr raises many of her own vegetables. She has a busy day taking care of the little goats besides cooking and caring for her own family. She goes to town about once every 2 weeks for supplies. Dean and Dickie help her cultivate and irrigate her garden. Today, she picks corn, blue cabbage, and squash. Mr. Carr invented his own water system. He built his water tower high up in the air so that the water would flow easily to the hot water tank in the house. This cold cellar, built under the ground, is cooled to a temperature of 48 degrees by a cold blast of air that blows up from a windy crevice deep in the ground. Time for school to let out. The regular school burned down, so they are using a temporary building behind the church. This is also a community gathering place. The farmers have meetings here 2 Wednesday nights a month, and the Carrs attend these meetings in a body. They have lots of fun, especially at the dances. The children all belong to the 4-H club. The boys have won prizes for their hogs, and Carol for her canning. Both boys are Boy Scouts. Ah, what a welcome. Fluffy? Mrs. Carr is very proud of the good grades her children make. She has a job of washing the 10-gallon cans and strainers for the milkers. Hard work, because the herd produces from 60 to 90 gallons of milk a day. In the spring, when the most kids are born, the quantity of milk reaches its peak. After milking, the men strain the milk and put it in a cool place. Mr. Carr sells his milk to a cheese factory and a bakery. Goat milk tastes almost like cow's milk, but has certain different qualities that make it easier to digest for some babies and invalids. Therefore, it is used by many doctors and hospitals. Carol has time for fun with their horse Queenie, although she works hard helping her mother with the canning, the housework, and caring for the baby goats. She likes to ride horseback up the mountain trails with her friends. Dean and Dickie work where they are most needed. Today, they help their father stack the bags of seed and hay in the hayloft. Mr. Carr raises his own hay, alfalfa, and clover. When the goats run in the woods, they are not fed hay, but when winter comes, it will be added to their diet. Carol milks Daisy, a pet goat, for us. She has a fine, even stroke. The goats are milked night and morning, and each milking takes an hour and a half. Carol milks half the goats on the electric milking machine, while her father and the boys milk the other half by hand. They have clean, well-ventilated barns and modern equipment, and their milk has a high rating. Goat's milk is rich, but the cream does not rise by itself. It must be separated by a machine. This is Annabelle, Dickie's pet goat, and her baby, Venice. Dickie has milked since he was 8 years old. Many goats are born without horns. Venice really is hungry. Annabelle has lots of milk to give her youngster, so Venice too will grow up to be a fine doe. Heidi has twin babies, Gypsy and Penny. Penny is only a day old, but she has a mind of her own. Heidi is a devoted mother. Babies need a lot of sleep. Penny settles down to have a little nap. Heidi lies down carefully to protect her milk bag. Goats have 4 stomachs and chew their cud like cows. First, they swallow their food whole. Then it comes up in the form of cud and is chewed. You can see the cud come up her throat. Heidi's beard tickles Penny's nose. Oh, how that tickles. Penny's annoyed. The Carrs have close friends, the Hills, who live on a 5-acre farm in California and breed Nubian and Alpine goats. Mr. Carr does other work, but runs his small farm as a sideline. These Nubian goats have droopy ears and big noses. This breed originally came from Egypt and Ethiopia. Goats have served mankind for thousands of years and are mentioned often in the Bible. Goats are very common in Europe and Asia because they can be kept in a small place and need so little care. Many families with only a small house and yard keep a goat. These lighter goats are French Alpine. This breed came from the mountains in France. Kids will be kids. It is not an unusual thing to see them dance and frisk around and bump heads. There's nothing cuter than a group of kids at play. Perhaps this is why we call our children kids. That would certainly hurt a person, but their heads are strong. Goats are natural climbers and are sure-footed on steep mountain heights. One can see wild goats high up in the mountains in our national parks. The Hills keep the barns and yards clean. Look at this clear water. Yvonne is smart. She knows where the water is coolest. She is a very pretty Alpine goat. Today, Mr. Kleppinger from the State University tests the milk. He will test this herd 3 days in a row. He weighs each doe's milk separately and makes a record of the amount of milk. He writes the doe's name on the label on the bottle. Then he puts a sample of the milk in the bottle, labeled with the goat's name. He will take the bottles home and test the milk for its content of butterfat. The Hills are proud of the butterfat record of their does and are pleased to have Mr. Kleppinger compliment them on the care they give their goats. They use the milk for their own stock and also sell milk regularly to a neighboring cheese factory. Goats are natural pets and can be taught many tricks. Vesta just loves the smoke from Mr. Hill's pipe. Ah, it smells good. Each goat has a personality all of its own. They are regular cuddlers and love to be petted by their masters. The goat breeders say that next to the dog, they are man's best friend. Near the Hills farm is one of the largest and best grade A goat dairies in the United States. There are 3 barns where the goats sleep and 2 large milking barns. They are new and have all the latest improvements. There are individual stalls for the does and their babies and for goats that need special care. Mr. Peel has 300 goats, and many are purebred white Sonans. This breed came from a valley in Switzerland. Each goat goes directly to her own stanchion. The barns are cleaned before each milking. Also, the goats are brushed, and the udders are washed. Goats are small, and it is easier to milk them if they are on a raised platform. The milker fastens them in. It takes 4 hours each morning and evening to milk the large herd. The electric milking machines are a great help to the milkers and are easy on the goats. It only takes about 2 minutes to milk a goat with one. These goats average 4 quarts of milk a day, and some of them give as much as 7 quarts. The milk record of Mr. Peel's dairy is very high because of his modern equipment and the great care with which the milk and goats are handled. Look at these fine, large milk bags. Each doe receives a portion of grain while she is being milked. The milk is first cooled and aired, flows over refrigerated coils which lower the temperature to 48 degrees. Then flows on into a large pasteurizing vat and is kept at a temperature of 143 degrees for half an hour. Everything is done exactly. Back at the Carr's farm, it is evening. Dean puts the bridle on Queenie to go out and round up the goats. And he takes Bowser along to help. They are great pals and have had many hunting and fishing trips together. Dean rides bareback up through the forest trails. Sometimes the goats wander far from home, and it takes time to find them in the dense forest. He dashes from one place to another, carefully scanning the dense foliage. Here they are in a small clearing, and some are resting by the mountain streams. The does are glad to return to the barns for their supper, and also their bags would hurt if they were not milked regularly. Back at the barns, they watch for the herd. The babies want their dinner. And so the beautiful herd is home and ready to be milked. Each goat turns into her own barn or corral, and the 15 mother goats that live with the babies go directly to the kids' barn. Some will sleep in the barns and some in the corrals, while the dogs keep watch and guard them during the night. These friendly little animals deserve the best because they demand so little food and care and give so freely of their health-giving milk.